For those of you unaware, I've just released my new book, Cutthroat Carnival. It'll be available to purchase on Amazon. Links will be in the description, and it should be readily available by the time this video has gone live. Now, in this book, I have about 4 or so main characters, so to speak. The protagonist, Darcy, he's more so a narrator because he's got like a timid sort of introverted personality. This ultimately upholds the story because it works well in tandem with the other characters, such as Ash, who functions as not only comic relief, but as a character in which, I'm not going to reveal too much, but there's a big twist in the end involving him. Now, that leads on to today's topic, which is, as you may know from the title, how to properly develop characters. Cutthroat Carnival is the perfect book in which displays the multifaceted nature of characters. So how does it do this, and how did I achieve this? So Ash, one of the main characters of the story, he speaks in colloquial terms. Obviously this is innate to him. All the characters have different dialogue, but his is the most perverse. Sometimes he'll use pig Latin or something of the sorts. It's so odd that it catches your attention, and even without dialogue tags, you'll be able to pinpoint the character. That's exactly what I want. Moreover, when you describe the character from the initial description, that should align with the character's actions. And so if I describe, for example, a character as a delinquent, later on if I see another character tagging up a tent or committing some sort of indecent act, then I can assume that these two are either linked or that they're the same character if no dialogue tag is applied. Now, that's in conveying the attitude. But what about backstory? How do we come up with a backstory? Well, unfortunately, I can't provide you with that answer in terms of a backstory, because that's going to be different depending on what book you write. Obviously, the whole language differentiation that I mentioned, that I applied in my own book, you can apply that to anything, right? Because you can get your characters to speak in whatever manner you wish, all right? That's not specific to me, to a book, nothing of sorts. It's just a skill you gotta practice over and over. So if you want to work on improving the character's dialogue specific traits, I would recommend you having, for example, different classes of character: comic relief, protagonist, timid character, intelligent character. Chuck them in a quick write. See how that works. Quick writes are great for experimentation, and you can just unveil the character's personality with ease. And so highly recommend doing that. Now, as for working on the backstory, as I alluded to previously, you're gonna have to figure that out yourself. But an easy way to do this is just create like a diagram in which you have the issue or the desire of a character, because every character needs a motive. There are very few characters that succeed with no motive, because even having no motive is a motive in its own way. So you have your motive, and then you have your branch down: why, how, etc., and you're just going to keep going down until you find a root cause. It's obviously a time-consuming method, but it's great for fleshing out your characters and understanding them and how they would interact. It's especially good if you're using the pantsing method, which we talked about last video, in which that's how you create effective stories without needing a plan, as listed in the Stephen King's On Writing book. Again, if you missed the video on how to effectively plan, I'll probably link it somewhere, or you can just check my channel, go to videos, and it'll be the one that I had previously made. Now, the next order of business in regards to creating a character: you've got your background, you've got the attribute, like the main overarching attribute. Now we need a more of a nuanced approach. What does this character act like on a more human level rather than just a trope level? Now, obviously, sometimes the standard tropes of protagonist, comic relief, etc., they're going to be just fine, especially if you're appealing to lower aged audiences, such as this book. Well, I did make use of some of the techniques I'm going to give. So if you're making use of the fact that your audience may be younger, the nuanced character may not be as important, and you can solely stick to like the tropes. Just flat out, comic relief is always comic relief. The smart individual comes up with all the smart ideas, they have all the plans, blah blah blah. Pretty straightforward. Sometimes people even push this forward for the sake of a gimmick or to hone in on that comedy. It's really good in comedy-based stories. That's what I will say. Now, as for a more nuanced approach, there's a character in my book called Chad. He's a minor character, but I give him a lot of personality. He's a douche at the start, but then as time progresses, he understands that he's got to assist the group with an escape, which ultimately leads to his demise. Yep, a bit of a spoiler, but go check it out. It's like $4 if you want the online copy. And that's Australian dollars, cheaper in America. This Chad, his name is Chad, his progression is quite odd because although he's a douche at first, what ultimately shifts is the circumstance. And that's what I'm going to get to right now. Circumstance changes character. There should be evolution in your character. With each passing chapter, I should still be able to tell it's the same character, though with just a slight tweak or a nudge. If you want them to start from a get-go with that nuance, because some people like those strong, sophisticated, ambiguous characters right at the start of their story, and they don't want necessarily that straight up progression, that linear progression. Instead, they like to essentially have a progression prior to the narrative. So what do you do there? You just make sure that their backstory, as previously mentioned, that's important part of their character, is riddled with these hints of their prior person and the person they are now. For example, the protagonist could be a cheery young kid prior to the events of the story. Their parents could die, and then there could be a sense of misery or depression kicking in which kind of envelops their personality. And over time, this personality will falter throughout the actual course of your book until the end. It might revert back to that happy state. And then you have like a cyclical transformation. That's just an example, something I thought off the top of my head, but there's many ways to go about it. So don't restrict yourself. And as I was mentioning before, the backstory in regards to their change over time. How do you display this? Description's a great way. Dropping subtle hints. If we look at popular book series like Harry Potter, obviously nothing as, like I mentioned, Harry doesn't really have like a big depression dive because his parents died when he was a wee lad. But obviously you know this, you probably read Harry Potter before. His backstory unfolds, like his family life and how his parents were killed ultimately unfold, and they do affect his character. We can see him become more sterner and serious. Obviously prior to the story there was no development because he was a baby, so he really had no character. But you can see how that backstory, even though it's not overtly prominent in the book, it's not the main storyline, it's alluded to. Sometimes you don't even need to have like a full-on scene in regards to backstory. You can just drop subtle hints, and that's usually enough. Audience is clear enough to piece it together. It's like dropping in a piece of symbolism. They will get it. Don't worry, you don't need to over-explain yourself. And that's the final point I wish to make. Don't over-explain or overstate your characters. Your characters are your characters, and their actions, funnily enough, speak louder than their words. Whatever they do in your story should convey their character. It's not what you make them say, it's what they should do on their own free will, if it makes sense. If you're panting, the way in which you'll write them out will ultimately convey to the audience the way in which they act and are on a more human-to-human based level. Like if you're in a conversation, what would they do? What would they say? These will be conveyed with ease because it is your character. You should know your character inside out. Or even exploring your character is not necessarily an issue at all, because with character exploration or development, that's the whole point. Because sometimes I feel as though the character is already lingering in the back of my mind and I've just got to extrapolate all that information. That's going to be it for today. If you haven't already clued in, get the book. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'm grateful that you're taking this first step in your writing journey to obviously become a author one day, or maybe you just enjoy writing, which is good fun as well. Obviously, it stems from enjoyment. Anyway, see ya. Have a good night.